Clara perched on the windowsill, her knees tucked under her chin, as she gazed out into the snowy night. The soft hum of Christmas carols on the radio barely reached her ears, muffled by the weight of her thoughts. It was Christmas Eve, but the house felt too quiet. Too still. The kind of silence that made her chest ache. Her parents were miles away, celebrating Christmas abroad for the first time. Work trip they had called it, promising to make it up to her when they returned. But the words felt hollow now, as if the spirit of Christmas had packed up and left with them. She'd tried to stay busy all day decorating a small tree, baking cookies, but nothing filled the emptiness in the room. She sipped her hot cocoa, letting the warmth soothe her, and stared out the frosted window. The snow glistened under the moonlight, painting the world in silver. It should have been magical, but it only made her feel lonelier. Maybe Christmas really is just another day, she murmured to herself, her breath fogging up the glass. Suddenly, a faint crunching sound reached her ears. She sat up straighter, peering out into the night. At first, she saw nothing, just the endless expanse of snow-covered trees. But then, in the distance, something moved. A shadow. Clara squinted, pressing her nose against the cold glass. The figure was climbing a tree. No, not climbing. Swinging. A large sack hung over its shoulder, and the faint jingle of bells seemed to accompany every step. Her heart skipped. Was she dreaming? The figure came closer, hopping from one snowy branch to another with surprising agility, until it reached the tree right outside her window. The sack shifted as the figure adjusted its balance. And then, he looked up. A man in a red suit, his face framed by a snowy white beard, grinned at her. "Santa," Clara whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of her own heartbeat. The figure winked, then leapt from the tree onto her windowsill with a grace that defied gravity. Snow fell from his boots as he landed, and before she could react, he tapped on the window with one gloved finger. "Are you going to let me in, or should I enjoy the snowstorm out here?" he said, his voice rich and warm, with a hint of amusement. Clara's jaw dropped. Her mind raced. Was this a dream? Was she imagining things? She pinched her arm. Ouch. Definitely awake. "Go on, now," Santa urged, his breath misting the glass. "It's colder than the North Pole out here." Still in shock, Clara hesitated before unhooking the latch and opening the window just enough to let him in. He swung a leg over the sill and stepped into her room, brushing snow off his coat. His sack thudded softly onto the floor, releasing the faint scent of pine and peppermint. You're real," she stammered, staring up at him. Santa chuckled, his belly shaking slightly. "Of course I'm real. Who else would be delivering presents on Christmas Eve?" Clara blinked, still clutching her cocoa. "But why are you here? Shouldn't you be, I don't know, at someone else's house? With, like, kids who still believe?" He tilted his head, his eyes twinkling. "Ah, but that's just it, Clara. You still believe. Or at least, part of you does. That's why I'm here." She frowned, confused. "I don't understand." Santa walked over to the small Christmas tree in the corner of her room, examining the slightly crooked star on top. "Christmas isn't just about belief in me, you know. It's about hope, joy, and finding magic even when things feel, well, quiet. And I have a feeling you could use a little of that tonight." Clara crossed her arms. "Magic doesn't fix everything. It won't bring my parents back, or make this house feel less empty." Santa turned to her, his expression softening. maybe not. But magic has a way of filling spaces you don't even realize are empty. He reached into his sack and pulled out a small, glittering snow globe. Inside, a tiny version of her house sat nestled in a snowy landscape. It was so detailed that she could even see the string of Christmas lights around her window. "Go on," Santa said, holding it out to her. "Give it a shake." Clara hesitated before taking the snow globe. It was surprisingly warm to the touch, almost as if it had been alive. Slowly, she shook it. The snow inside swirled, sparkling like diamonds, and suddenly, the room around her changed. The soft glow of fairy lights bathed the walls, and the scent of freshly baked cookies filled the air. A roaring fire crackled in the fireplace that hadn't been there moments ago, and stockings hung neatly above it. A massive Christmas tree stood in the corner, adorned with twinkling ornaments that seemed to hum with their own light. Clara gasped, turning in a slow circle. How did you do this?" Santa grinned. "Christmas magic, of course. But this isn't just my doing, it's yours. This magic comes from the memories and hope you carry in your heart, even when you don't realize it." Clara clutched the snow globe tightly, her eyes shimmering with wonder. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It's a reminder," Santa said, stepping closer. "Whenever you feel lonely, or like the magic is gone, just give this a shake. Sometimes, all we need is a little spark to remind us of everything we have." Tears pricked her eyes. For the first time all day, her heart felt warm, as if it had been wrapped in a soft, glowing blanket. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling. Santa tipped his hat. "My pleasure. But now, I must be off. The reindeer are probably getting impatient." Clara followed him to the window, clutching the snow globe like a lifeline. "Will I see you again?" Santa stepped back onto the sill, his boots crunching on the snow. He turned to her with a twinkle in his eye. "You'll see me every Christmas, Clara. Maybe not like this, but I'll always be there. After all, Christmas magic is everywhere, you just have to believe." With that, he leapt into the night, disappearing into the swirling snow. Clara leaned out, watching until he was just a speck in the sky. The room still glowed with warmth and light, but this time, so did Clara. She held the snow globe close to her heart, a smile spreading across her face. "Maybe Christmas isn't quiet after all," she whispered.